The wind howled through the thick trees of the moon called Ulanathri. Sharp leaves swayed, and strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, screeching in alarm. A human named Luke crouched next to his small, crashed cargo shuttle. Smoke rose from its side where a power coil had burst. Sparks hissed as he tried to patch it up with whatever tools he had left. "Great," he muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I should have taken the long route through the Alliance lanes." A soldier or a hero? He was just a ship technician and delivery man for the outer colonies. Today was supposed to be a simple drop-off. Instead, a magnetic storm pulled his ship down onto this jungle moon, far from help. His comms were weak, and he wasn't sure if anyone had even picked up his distress signal. He grabbed a bottle of water and sat against a tree, trying to stay calm. As he rested, he heard something soft at first, a whimper. Then a louder cry, broken and frightened. He stood up fast, eyes scanning the forest. "Hello?" he called. No answer. Just the sound again, higher pitched. It didn't sound like a wild animal. It sounded like a child. He walked carefully, pushing through vines and low branches. He followed the sound deeper into the jungle. After a few minutes, he reached a small clearing and then froze. A child sat on the ground, hugging her knees. She had smooth lavender skin and glowing blue eyes. Small golden bands were around her arms and ankles. Her clothing was fine silk, dirty from crawling. Luke could tell right away this wasn't just any alien kid. This was someone important. She looked up at him, wide-eyed and scared. "Hey, it's okay," Luke said softly, crouching down. "I won't hurt you." The girl said something in her language words he didn't understand, but she didn't run. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're hurt," he noticed. One of her legs had a scratch, bleeding purple. He pulled out a med patch from his kit and slowly moved forward, keeping his hands open. She watched him tense, but didn't move away. "I'm gonna help, all right?" he whispered. He cleaned the wound and placed the patch gently. Her breathing slowed, and after a moment, she reached out and grabbed his sleeve. "It's okay," he smiled. "I've got you now." Luke picked her up gently and carried her back to his crash site. He set up a small shelter with blankets and made her sit near the emergency heater. She stayed close to him, watching everything. He did. He tried to ask her where she came from, but she didn't answer. Either she didn't understand him or was too scared to talk. Still, she ate the protein bar he gave her and drank water at night. Fell quickly on Ulano 3. Strange howls echoed in the distance. Luke kept a stun baton by his side just in case. He didn't sleep much, but the child finally did, curling up beside him. By morning, Luke was already trying to fix the broken comm unit. The storm above had passed, and maybe now he could reach someone. This is Technician Luke Davis, stranded on Ulano 3, requesting urgent extraction. "I have a miner on board, a young alien girl, possibly of noble descent. Repeat, this is a priority message." He sent the signal, hoping someone was out there. The girl watched him closely. She finally spoke a single word in Galactic Basic. "Safe." He turned to her. "Yeah, you're safe." Tears slid down her cheek, but she smiled. 3 days passed, and the girl he started calling her Zaya, since she never gave a name, grew closer. She followed him everywhere. When he hunted small animals for food, she stayed by his side. When he tried to repair the engine, she sat quietly nearby. She never let him go far. It was clear she felt protected around him. On the 4th day, just after dawn, the ground shook. Luke stepped out of the shelter and looked up. Clouds were parting. A massive shadow passed over the jungle. A shipno, a palace, in the sky descended. It was beautiful, silver and gold, shaped like a flower opening. It floated silently until it touched the earth, and a bridge extended from its side. Luke backed up, holding Zaya's hand. She didn't seem scared. In fact, she looked calm, like she expected this. Armored figures marched down the bridge. Tall, elegant warriors in white and gold. They held no weapons, but looked deadly. Behind them came someone taller than the rest. Wearing a flowing robe covered in stars, Luke felt his breath catch. It was a queen. She had the same glowing blue eyes and lavender skin as Zaya, but older, stronger, and regal. Her expression was unreadable as she stepped forward. The warriors bowed. Even Zaya stepped back and bowed deeply. Luke stood still. He wasn't sure what to do. The queen approached slowly. Her voice when she spoke was like music. "You are the one who found her?" "Yes, ma'am," Luke said nervously. "I didn't know who she was. She needed help." The queen looked at her child, then back at him. Her lips curled into a slight smile. "And yet you protected her, fed her, and never once asked for reward?" "She was just a scared kid." He shrugged. "That's what anyone would do." "Not anyone," the queen replied softly, without another word. She bowed her head to him, a gesture of high respect in many alien cultures. Luke blinked. This was getting strange. The queen stood tall again. "You must come with us to the palace. We owe you more than thanks." "Look, I don't want trouble." "It is not trouble," she interrupted gently. "We've passed a very old and important test, and now your true path begins." As the queen turned and walked away, Zaya ran back and grabbed Luke's hand. Pulling him toward the ship, he looked down at her, then up at the massive palace ship waiting for them. He had no idea what was coming next, but somehow he knew. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Luke followed slowly, his boots pressing into the soft alien grass. Zaya held his hand tightly as they walked across the glowing bridge into the massive palace ship. The air inside was warm and smelled like flowers and something sweet he couldn't name. Walls shimmered with moving lights. Soft music played from nowhere. He had never seen anything like this. Guards nodded as he passed, but none spoke. Everything was quiet, too quiet. Zaid finally let go of his hand and ran ahead. She was smiling now, hugging older women dressed in fine robes. They touched her face gently and bowed to her. Clearly, they were happy to see her back. Luke stood awkwardly near a tall pillar. He didn't know where to go or what to do. Then the queen returned. This time, she wore a different robe, deep purple with silver threads that shimmered like stars. She walked straight to him. "Follow me," she said simply. Luke walked beside her through a long hallway filled with strange plants, floating orbs, and painted windows that showed the stars. They passed under archways that shifted as they moved, adjusting their shape and size to fit him. Finally, they reached a private room. It wasn't fancy, just a soft chair, a table, and a screen that showed a peaceful lake. A soft breeze even blew into the room. It felt more like home than a throne room. "Sit," she said, pointing to the chair. Luke sat down. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, Your Highness, but I didn't come here too." She raised her hand gently. "You are not in trouble. Relax." He leaned back, but stayed alert. "Then why bring me here? Why not just say thank you and let me go? Because that would be ungrateful," the queen said. "And we are not ungrateful." Luke scratched his head. "I really don't need anything. I'm just glad she's okay." The queen's eyes softened. "Zaya means everything to me. She is my only child. And you did not run. You did not fear her. You did not try to sell her, harm her, or even ask who she was. You treated her like any child." "Well, yeah," Luke said simply, "because that's what she is." The queen sat down across from him. For a long moment she said nothing, just watched him. Every few years she began, "We send Zaya out secretly, safely, but away from our palace. We watch who finds her, who helps her. It is a very old custom, one that has helped shape our royal line for centuries." Luke's eyes widened. "Wait, you sent her out on purpose?" "Yes," she replied, "with guards nearby in case of danger. But no one is allowed to speak to her or help her unless they are truly kind. And this is normal for you?" "It is tradition," she said calmly. "My own mother did it to find her life partner, and now I have done it too." Luke blinked, confused. "Partner? You mean this was to find a husband?" "Yes," she said simply. He stared at her in shock. "You're saying I passed some kind of test? And now I'm supposed to marry you?" "Not supposed to," she said, her voice quiet. but you have the right to be considered. You are the only one who has passed in nearly 20 years. Been doing this for 20 years? He asked, stunned. Yes, she said. But most who find her are greedy. Some call for ransom. Some try to sell her back to us. Others run away. None have done what you did. Luke leaned back. I didn't sign up for this. You didn't need to, the Queen said softly. Your actions spoke for you. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the screen showed 2 moons rising over the lake. Finally, Luke spoke. You don't even know me. I have watched, she said. Since the day you found her, I saw how you treated her when you thought no one was watching. I saw how you shared your food, gave her your blanket, stayed awake at night to keep her safe. I saw a man with no armor, no power, no title, act more noble than most kings. Didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken about him like that. I won't force you, she said quietly. You can leave any time, but I want you to stay for a while, just to see my world, to know me. No promises. He looked down at his hands. And if I say no, then you will return home with gifts, honor, and our thanks. No shame. He nodded slowly. I'll stay a little while. Just to look around, she smiled. It made her face look younger, more alive. Good, she said. Then let us begin with something simple. A walk. Now. They left the room and stepped onto a floating platform that moved over the gardens. Soft lights danced through the trees. Birds of light sang sweet songs. Waterfalls sparkled in the distance. Everything felt calm and peaceful. Luke looked around in wonder. This place is beautiful, and yet few ever see it, the Queen said. They come here only for trade or power, but never for peace. He glanced at her. Why me, really? Because you were kind when no one was watching, she said. And because Zaya smiled in her sleep the night she met you. That hasn't happened in years. They floated above a pool of glowing fish. Luke leaned over the edge, watching the lights dance. This is going to take some getting used to, he said. Your time, she replied. And as the moonlight washed over the garden, Luke felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not pressure, but something quiet and new. Maybe, just maybe, he could see what this strange new path had to offer. Luke spent the next few days inside the palace ship, exploring its wide halls and glowing gardens. At first, he felt out of place. Everything around him was elegant and quiet, and he wasn't used to that. He had grown up on space stations, where noise and tools and metal walls were part of life. But here everything felt alive, soft and peaceful. Every morning, he was greeted by a helper named Orin, a short alien with bright green skin and a cheerful voice. Orin brought him food, guided him around the palace, and answered questions. Sometimes they laughed together. Luke slowly started to relax. The Queen, whose name he learned was Kailani, met with him every day. They didn't talk about marriage anymore. Instead, she asked about his life, his family, back on Earth, the things he liked to build. The time he saved a ship full of kids from overheating by fixing a broken cooling pipe with nothing but tape. And a spoon Kale, A&I, listened with interest. Hey, she didn't judge him. She laughed. When he made jokes and asked more when he spoke from the heart. One evening, she took him to the Hall of Memory, a quiet room filled with floating lights. Each light held a memory, voices, images, even emotions. She showed him one from her childhood where she was laughing in a garden with her mother. It felt warm and real. We store feelings here, Kailani said. Not just thoughts. So we don't forget what joy or sadness truly feels like. Luke looked at the floating lights. Earth could use something like this? Maybe someday, she said. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she asked, Do you miss your home? He nodded. Yeah, sometimes, but this place is something else. It's peaceful. Like it's made for people to breathe again. I'm glad you feel that way. Later that night, Luke sat on a balcony by himself, staring at the stars. He thought about what was happening. Wasn't sure how to feel. This wasn't a game, Kailani was serious. She was powerful, graceful, and deeply kind. and her daughter Zaya now laughed and ran freely through the palace, no longer afraid. He remembered how Zaya used to sleep close to him in the forest, how she smiled when he handed her warm food, and how she tried to copy the way he fixed things. She trusted him. Now, so did her mother. But was he really ready for something like this? The next day, Kailani invited him to attend a gathering. Leaders from other star systems had come to speak with her. She wore a long white robe with silver leaves stitched into it. She looked calm and strong. Luke stood near her throne, unsure if he should speak. But when the guests arrived, Kailani motioned for him to stand beside her. Whispers filled the room. Clearly people noticed. "This is the one who found my daughter and brought her home with honor," she told them. "His name is Luke Davis. Not of our world, but he is of our heart." Luke felt heat rise in his face. He had never stood before rulers before, let alone be introduced like that. But no one laughed or questioned him. They simply bowed their heads. After the meeting, one of the visitors, a wise old alien with glowing eyes, approached Luke privately. "She has not let anyone stand that close to her in many years," the alien said. "You have changed something here." "I didn't mean to," Luke replied. "And yet you did." Days passed. Luke was given a room filled with tools, machines, and old devices that hadn't worked in years. He told him he could fix whatever he wanted. Soon, he was busy again, doing what he loved. Workers came to him for help. He repaired broken drones, reprogrammed water pumps, and even designed a new power shield for the Queen's garden. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was part of the place. Zaya visited him often. She sat on the workbench and watched him with wide eyes. Sometimes she handed him tools without asking. Sometimes she fell asleep beside him. Kailani joined him one evening while he was fixing a floating lantern. "You look happy?" she said. "I am," he answered, surprised by his own words. "I didn't think I'd ever feel at home anywhere else, but this is starting to feel right." She smiled. "That means more to me than you know. But I still don't know if I'm meant for all this royal stuff," he admitted. "I'm just a guy who knows how to fix engines and plug holes." "You're more than that," Kalani said gently. "You fixed something much harder than machines. You fixed trust. You made a frightened child feel safe. Made this place feel alive." Again, Luke looked at her. The way she spoke, it wasn't just words. She meant it. "What happens if I stay?" he asked quietly. "You stay as yourself," she said. "I don't want a prince. I want someone real. Someone honest." He nodded slowly. "And if I leave, then you leave with honor. And Zaya will always remember you." He thought for a long time. Outside, the stars blinked above the palace. Finally, he said, "I'll stay. Not just for now. I want to see where this goes." Kailani smiled, and this time her eyes sparkled with something more than gratitude. "Then let's walk this path together," she said, as the lantern lit up in Luke's hands, casting soft light across their faces. He felt something settle in his chest, a choice, and something very close to love. Days turned into weeks. Luke was no longer a visitor. Everyone in the palace knew his name. The guards nodded to him when he passed. The workers greeted him with smiles. Children ran to him for stories and small gadgets he had fixed. He had become part of their world quietly, but fully. His bond with Zaya grew stronger. She followed him everywhere like a shadow, full of questions and laughter. She even began to fix things beside him, copying his hand movements and learning how each tool worked. He started calling her little helper. She beamed every time he said it. One morning, Luke was invited to a special room deep in the palace. Orin guided him through a tall archway shaped like a tree, its golden leaves glowing. "This is the Chamber of Bonds," Orin said with a soft voice.
"Only those trusted by the Queen are allowed inside."
Luke stepped in slowly. The chamber was wide, round, and quiet. Blue light filled the space, and in the center stood a large circle of smooth stone, floating gently above the ground. Carved symbols danced across its surface. Ina was already there, standing with her back to him. She turned when she heard him enter. Her long robe shimmered in the light. "I brought you here for a reason," she said softly. Luke stepped closer. "This place feels ancient, It is, Kailani replied. This is where our people form true unions, not by force, not by power, but by choice. Luke didn't speak right away, felt the weight of the moment. Kalani walked toward him. You've been here for many days now. We've shared meals, work, laughter, silence. I have watched you with my daughter. I've seen how she looks at you with peace. And I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Luke looked into her eyes. There was no crown on her head now, no guards, no royal presence, just a woman standing before him with truth. I didn't plan for this, Luke said. I never thought I'd end up on a jungle moon, much less in a palace talking about unions and royal customs. She smiled softly. And yet here you are. You know I'm not perfect, he added. I don't come from royalty. I've made mistakes. I get things wrong. So do I, she whispered. But you are honest. You're not trying to be anything you're not. That's rare. He took a breath. So what happens if we step onto that stone? We speak a vow, she said. Not about power or duty, just truth. It's not binding unless we both choose. The stone knows if the words are real, Luke laughed once. Magic stone, huh? Not magic, she replied. Just old science we no longer understand. He looked at the stone, then back at her. And you really want to do this? Only if you want it to, Kalani said gently. I will not ask again. He thought about everything. The crash, the jungle, the child's tears, the queen's calm voice, the silent dinners, the shared smiles, the tools, the laughter. He didn't know what tomorrow held, but he knew one thing. He didn't want to leave. All right, he said finally. Let's try. They stepped onto the floating stone together. The blue light grew brighter around them. Kalani took his hand. I vow, she said, to walk beside you, not ahead, not behind. To share peace, not demand it. To know you, not change you. Luke swallowed, then said, I vow to stay real with you, to protect what matters. To never forget who you are, even when you don't wear the crown. The stone pulsed once. The symbols lit up with soft white light, then faded. Kailani let go of his hand and smiled. It accepted our words. Luke gave a nervous smile. So, we married now? No, she chuckled. This is not marriage. This is the step before, the bond of trust. We see if we grow stronger or apart. I can live with that. That night, the palace held a feast, not a royal one, but a quiet celebration with music, laughter, and glowing lights. Luke sat beside Kailani at a long table filled with food from different worlds. Zaya ran around the table with other children. Laughing without fear, Luke was handed a small necklace made of silver threads and one glowing stone. What's this? He asked. It means you are one of us now, Oren explained. Not because of power, because of heart. He wore it with quiet pride. After the feast, Luke and Kailani walked through the garden under the twin moons. Fireflies of different colors floated around them. So what now? Luke asked. We live, Kailani answered. Day by day, together. No throne rooms. No grand speeches. Only if you want speeches, she smiled. They sat on a bench near a soft waterfall. Kailani leaned her head against his shoulder. You know, he said, I was scared when I crashed here. I thought I wouldn't make it back. You did make it back, she whispered. Just not the way you expected. Yeah, he nodded. Not the way I expected at all. It's the stars reflected in the water. And soft music from the palace floated through the air. Luke felt something deep inside settle. He didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in years, he wasn't worried. He was exactly where he was meant to be. Weeks passed quietly. Luke settled into his new life like a puzzle piece finally in place. He wasn't treated like a stranger anymore. People came to him with broken tools, questions about machines, or simply to talk. Unused was now full of gadgets, wires, and pieces of strange tech that he had repaired or improved. Zaze still followed him around. But now she wasn't just watching, she was learning. She helped him sort tools, carried parts, and even tried to build her own small devices. One day she proudly showed him a tiny light orb she made on her own. "Looks like I've got competition." He smiled, patting her head. She giggled, then hugged him tightly. Kale A and I often joined them in the evenings. Sometimes she sat beside them, watching as Luke taught Zaya. Other times they walked through the gardens, speaking about their pasts, their hopes, and the things that made them laugh. The bond between them grew deeper, not rushed, but steady, like something real and lasting. But peace never lasted forever. One morning, as Luke was fixing a cooling system in one of the palace wings, alarms echoed through the halls. He stood. Quickly, dropping his tools, Orin ran in, breathless. "You must come at once. A warship has entered orbit. It's from the Korvathi sector." Luke frowned. "Korvathi? I've heard of them. Aren't they the ones who tried to take over Outer?" "Colonies." "Yes," Orin said with fear. "They've sent a message. They claim to be looking for a lost artifact. But we think they know you're here." "Me?" Luke asked, surprised. "Why would they care about me?" "Because the Korvathi had spies," Orin said. "They know the Queen began the trial. They think if they kidnap you, they can weaken her or stop the Union." Luke felt a chill run down his spine.
Ow.
"So now I'm a target?" "Yes." Guards were already surrounding Kailani's chambers when Luke arrived. She stood calmly, wearing her royal armor sleek, silver with glowing patterns. Her eyes met his. "I won't let them take you," she said. "They have no right." "I can help," Luke said. "I'm not a fighter, but I can block their scanners, jam their signals by his time." Kailani nodded. "Then come with me to the control hall." Together, they entered the palace's command room. Screens showed the enemy ship above the planet. It was dark and sharp, a war machine designed for fear. "They're trying to land," a guard said. Luke moved fast, connecting wires, rerouting energy, and typing commands into their old system. "I'm setting up a signal loop. It'll make them think we have 3 times more ships than we do." "Can you block their transporters?" Kailani asked. "Working on it," Luke said. "But I need more time." Outside, the sky darkened. As the warship approached, small fighters launched from it, circling the palace. Anti-air turrets activated, but they were few in number. "We never expected an attack," Kailani said. "This place was built for peace. Then we protect it with whatever we have," Luke replied. He connected an old satellite dish, aimed it at the warship, and overloaded the frequency. Alarms blared on the enemy ship's screen as systems started to flicker. "Got it," he grinned. "They won't be able to beam anyone down." Kailani stepped beside him. "You've done more than most soldiers." He looked at her. "I told you, I may not have a sword, but I fix things." Just then, Zaya ran into the room, crying. "The garden. Fire." Luke and Kailani rushed outside. One of the enemy fighters had dropped a small bomb. It wasn't big, but it had set part of the garden on fire. Kailani gave orders to her guards to fight off the drones, while she helped the children and elders reach safety. Luke grabbed a water pack and rushed toward the flames. Others joined him, pouring water and sand to put it out. The fire was tough, but they didn't give up. Finally, after nearly an hour, the flames died. The garden was blackened in places, but the heart of it was still alive. Zur hugged Luke tightly. "I was scared." "Me too," he said honestly. "But we're okay." Later, as the warship retreated, confused by Luke's tricks and unable, Kailani called a meeting with her advisors. "They will come again," one said. "See weakness in our peace." "Then we must show them that peace is not weakness," Kailani replied firmly. She looked at Luke. "You've helped us more than you know." "They'll keep coming," he said, "and next time, we might not be lucky." "Then we stand together," she said. He nodded slowly. "I won't run, not now. This is my home too." Kailani smiled. "Yes, it is." That night, the stars shone brighter. The people of the palace repaired the damage, and the fire's ashes were turned into soil for new seeds. Luke sat under a tree with Zaya sleeping beside him. Kailani joined him, placing a warm cloth over the child. "You could have left long ago," she whispered, "but you stayed." "Because staying felt right," he said. "And now, feels like purpose." She touched his hand gently. "Are more than a guest now, more than a helper. You are one of us." And as the cool breeze passed through the garden, Luke realized something he hadn't dared to admit before. He wasn't just falling for a queen, he was falling for a life he never imagined but now couldn't live without. The sky above the palace was calm again. The enemy warship had left orbit, and there was peace on the surface. But everyone knew this calm wouldn't last forever. Luke stood near the edge of the balcony, watching the stars. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. But he was thinking deeply. Behind him, Kailani entered quietly. She had changed from her armor back into her royal robe, soft and flowing. She walked to him and stood beside him in silence. "Are you thinking about leaving?" she asked softly. "No," Luke said. "I'm thinking about what happens next." Kailani looked at the stars too. "The council from other worlds is coming soon. They want to speak with me. Some of them still believe I should choose a political union." That one made. "From the heart, you mean? Someone else?" he asked, his voice calm but steady. "Yes," she said, "but I already made my choice." Luke turned toward her. "You sure about that? I'm not a prince. I'm not powerful. I don't come from a famous line." She smiled gently. "You're human, and you were tested in a way many others failed. Not with a weapon, but with kindness. Not in a palace, but in a jungle with a scared child. That means more than a crown." Luke let out a slow breath. "What about the Korvathi? They'll come back. Maybe stronger. I don't want your people to suffer because of me." "They won't suffer," she said. "It's not because of you. They will see what happens when someone good stands beside me. They will see we are not alone." Any more, Zaya ran up then, her small feet soft on the floor. She held 2 glowing flowers in her hands. "One for Mama," she said with a giggle, "and one for Luke." He took it with a smile. "Thank you, little helper." She beamed and hugged him before running off again. Kailani watched them. "She sees you as family now." "I see her the same way," he replied quietly. The next morning, a large gathering was held in the palace's main court. Leaders from different star systems arrived in their colorful robes, surrounded by guards and advisors. The air was thick with formality. Luke stood beside Kailani, wearing simple clothes with the silver thread necklace that marked his bond. He didn't feel nervous. "Not this time," Kalan stepped forward and spoke with strength. "Years ago, my people created a tradition, a test of heart, not of power or war. My daughter was placed where danger lived, where only the brave and kind would help without reward. Many failed. One did not." She turned toward Luke. "He is not of our world. He is not a prince." He was not sent here to win anything. And yet, he won something greater than a crown. He earned our trust. Some leaders whispered to each other, surprised. Kale, A&I continued. "I chose him, not because of what he owns, but because of who he is." She stepped closer to Luke, and the court grew silent. "Will you stand with me, not just in peace, but in storms?" she asked. Luke looked at her, steady and calm. "I already am." With that, Kailani took his hand. Glowing lights surrounded them, symbols of her people's union. The crowd stood, silent and respectful. There was no shouting, no celebration music, just quiet understanding. After the gathering, as the sun began to set, Kailani and Luke walked through the palace gardens. Zaya ran ahead, picking flowers and laughing. "So," Luke said, smiling, "does this mean I get my own crown?" "Not yet," Kailani laughed. "But you might get your own chair. Good enough for me." As they sat down near the central fountain, Luke looked out at the people. They weren't afraid. They weren't confused. They were happy. "I never thought this would be my life," he said, "and I never thought I'd find someone like you," Kailani replied. He looked at her seriously. "You still want to take this slow?" She smiled. "Not anymore." He leaned back and looked at the stars above. They were the same stars he had seen from Earth, but everything felt different now. This world, this palace, this strange, peaceful life, it was home. A few nights later, Luke stood on the same jungle path where he first found Zaya. He had asked Orin to bring him there. He wanted to see it again. The old crash site was now quiet, covered in green. Vines wrapped around metal pieces. The fire pit was gone, and birds sang softly in the trees. He stood there for a while, remembering the fear in Zaya's eyes, the pain in her leg, the cold nights they shared under one blanket. And now that scared child was safe, laughing and growing strong. A soft sound came from behind him. Kalani stepped out of the trees. "I knew I'd find you here," she said. "Just wanted to see where it all began." "And it wasn't much," he said, "but it was real." She stepped beside him. "That's what matters." They stood there, hand in hand, watching the sun rise through the trees. Golden light spilled over the forest floor. "So," Luke said with a grin, "what's next for us?" "Whatever we choose," she replied. And as the morning light touched their faces, they walked back together, no longer queen and guest, but partners, ready to face whatever the galaxy brought. Next,